Welcome to the DGD podcast. As always, Robert Reynolds, Juan Daniels. We've got a lot to talk about, but before we do, just want to give everybody listen. Take a second to keep Mike Leach and his family in your thoughts, or pray for them if you're a praying type. Things are not good. It kind of happened quickly over the weekend. So thoughts and prayers here from the DGD podcast. Just terrible news, man. It really is. Just kind of crazy how things just happen. But like I said, keep them in your thoughts, keep them in your prayers. If, like I said, if you're a praying type. Um, so yeah, just like I said, just want to make sure people are aware. Like it's kind of sad what happened. Um, Other than that, though, Juan, I think we got a lot to talk about today. Obviously, we play one of your favorite teams, Ohio State, here on New Year's Eve, and with that being said, I think it's time we look into both teams, and we're going to break this down offensively first. I want to look at our offense, look at their offense, get some obviously some key players, right, and then kind of look at offensive strategy, right? Kind of compare strategies here, just kind of get a feel for each offense. Uh, yeah, as Bishop Don says, let's go. The brigade, speaking of, let's do the shout out before we start. Our brigade, we've got some OG O double G's, man. Got J O double G, about to have P O double G.
Yeah.
Goodness gracious, man. The brigade is growing. They don't even realize it yet. They don't even realize it yet. But first off, let's do this. Obviously, Stetson did not take home the Heisman Trophy as many thought that he should have, coming in fourth. Which, at the end of the day, though, I do think that's something that should be noted, in my opinion. Obviously, we talked about this. There was, a thin chance that he would win that, but nonetheless, just going to New York, right? I think, to me, that's a recruiting pitch in itself, easily, easily. Um, Breaking news: we apparently JOGG, boom, new baby just arrived, new brigadier, folks, live during the show, new brigadier. Juan,
Double grandma.
tell him, man. We gotta let him know that Juan's the goat. There's no question about it. That's what you're gonna be brainwashed to hear for the rest of your life, because it's never a lie. All right, it's never a lie. But with that being said, obviously, kind of going back here, Stetson get like in Kirby Smart, right? Did you hear what they were talking about in like the quick questions that was Kirby was asked? Did you
No,
hear that or anything?
no,
Basically,
I didn't watch any of it.
okay. So basically, to paraphrase, like he kept proving, like he kept talking in regards to Stetson about how like he just kept proving him wrong. Stetson kept proving Kirby wrong. They never believed in him in that sense, and he kept fighting through and things like that. But I look at it ultimately, right? Like obviously that's a testament to Stetson and his work ethic. But at the same time, I look at it as a recruiting pitch right there. Like, you come on, and he mentioned, practice squad and things like that, and it's Kirby's, what's the word? What's the best word for it? Like, the mantra and the standard at Georgia, right? Come in, contribute, and be a great team member and things like that, and it just turned out to be that way. He kept preaching practice, right? Which, Kirby, that's a crucial point in this program, is practice and things like that too. It was just a good sight to see, man. I ain't gonna lie. It was fun to see Stetson up there, and you know, I think him finishing fourth might light a fire, because for some reason Kirby gets these guys motivated over anything and everything. So the fact that he comes in fourth, you know, I guarantee you Kirby's going to find a way to manipulate into some fuel, if you will. Um, what are your thoughts on Caleb Williams though winning the Heisman?
I was having this discussion a little bit earlier today. It just depends on what the criteria is, right? So, from a criteria standpoint, statistically, I mean, that was his Heisman. I mean, he had more passing yards, more passing touchdowns. He had more rushing touchdowns. And so he did what he did, needed to do from a check the box standpoint. But also too, and I think Desmond Howard was a little bit of a little bit upset. If you were looking at somebody that's representing what's the Heisman Trophy all about, Caleb Williams is not that guy. I would have gone with a Max Duggan before I would have gone to Caleb Williams.
No, I mean, it was crazy to me. I guess for me, I didn't expect Max Duggan to be second. It seemed like a wide gap between first and second, and then obviously third and fourth was a gap between second and third and fourth. So it was spaced out, if you will. So it seemed like
take a look at what Max Duggan did, and I think it was, one of the things that you're looking at is C.J. Stroud when it really mattered. I mean, he just did not show up. Whereas Max Duggan, when he basically was trying to will his team to win that game, if they win that game, it would have been Max Duggan's trophy. No ifs, ands, or buts about it.
My thing was, though, Juan, with a lot of this Heisman stuff, the ballots could be placed before the conference champions even happen. Because to me, when you look at a Heisman winner, right, stats is one thing. This tells me this screams a stat award because Caleb Williams had nice stats for sure. But you lost to the only good team that you played twice. Like, obviously, it's an individual award, right? But you start to look around, and Max Duggan, like, you take a team that legitimately was projected to finish seventh in the Big 12 conference, and you move them to an undefeated season, and it took an overtime loss to Kansas State trying to beat a team that you've already played twice, right? So they only lost to them by one, but it was overtime on a last. And the problem was the play call. Had they kept Duggan the ball, had they gave him the ball for that quarterback sneak, I guarantee they score.
Yeah,
he balled his ass off that game.
Well, you have to look at it too. Like if we are calling it what it is, calling a spade, the Big 12 is awful. I mean, they just were not very good. I mean, they just weren't. Texas was bad. Oklahoma was bad. They didn't really have that marquee team outside of a TCU. So that was that. Caleb, you can't fault him for that first loss because I mean, Utah was aggressive. They went for two. They win that game. The second loss, I mean, he's playing very well. Had a breakout run and then tweaks his hamstring. So it just seems like the Heisman voters did not penalize him for those two instances.
I mean, to rightfully so. Like, I understand there's context around it, right? Because like for some reason, people keep wanting to give Stetson shit for being surrounded by a bunch of top talent, and to that point, you look at
for Stetson going 3 games and not throwing an offensive touchdown, that's going to kill you. Number one, and then again, like you said, just he's got a lot of talent around him. So you plug in any of those quarterbacks to Georgia, and I really feel like it's you're tilting scoreboards versus what you have with a Stetson. Or if you take Stetson and you put him on these other teams, they're not going to be that good.
Well, think about this: half the season, Stetson didn't even touch the ball to make a pass in the fourth quarter for half our season. So some of it is, and I'm not going to knock this because at the end of the day, I want to win what we're about to win again. The individual awards are nice, but I can guarantee you Stetson and every single one else on this team don't give a damn about these individual awards. They want that natty in January.
Yep. All day. That's what all day, every day. Yep, you're right.
That's why you look at, because we spread it around, right? We spread it around. You look at Kenny McIntosh, right? Dejon Edwards, all those guys. They've got decent stat lines, but it's spread out. Brock Bowers spread out. It wasn't nearly as much as last year, right? And that's a good thing to have for, Kirby's preaches it, complimentary football, and it's a championship winning program mentality to have, and just in my opinion, right? I mean, let's be honest. Brock Bowers not winning the MAC, people would have probably rioted in the streets. I can't be mad about that because just he is the best tight end in college football, and I guarantee you he wins that shit next year too. Just until you're proven otherwise, I just don't see it. But But otherwise, right? Like obviously that is in that's in the rearview mirror now, and now Stetson can take that and find some fuel to the fire as we get ready for Ohio State. Juan, I'm gonna let you pick here. Which offense do you want to talk about first?
Let's talk about Ohio State's offense.
All right, let's do this.
Yeah.
All right, so y'all know, obviously, we're just gonna talk some key players here, and like I said, kind of feel for that offense, right? To me, from an overall standpoint, like obviously you have an absolute unit when it comes to receiving core, right? You have you have Marvin Harrison Jr., in my opinion, best receiver in college football. Emeka Egbuka, right? Damn good receiver in his own right. The name that I haven't called yet is Jackson Smith and Jigba, and with him being hurt, things like that, and now you've got him not playing in the bowl game or in the Sugar Bowl or sorry the Peach Bowl, my fault. Um, and that puts a damper on that receiving room, if you will. But Ohio State has now, if they're healthy, their running backs are good too. You look at guys like Travion Henderson, of course, right? And then what is it? What's his name? It's slipping my mind. Coming to me though. There, Evan Pryor, I think it is. Yeah, Evan Pryor, kid out of Huff here. Both of those guys are dinged up. If they're healthy, which you have 3 weeks or so to get healthy and prepare for the game, it can make for an interesting game if you have these guys coming back healthy, right? Or how healthy can they be? Should be the question. Because I like what Travion Henderson can do, right? And I think Evan Pryor's the same way. But it all starts with C.J. Stroud ultimately too, because C.J. Stroud can stretch the field vertically. Now, from that point, how much of it, how much vertical can they be? We'll see, right? I think they pose a threat to our defense by being able to stretch the field vertically. But if you notice, they also have some good players on their offensive line. It's young, but you've got Paris Johnson, right? You've got Paris Johnson. Excuse me. Let's see, Paris Johnson and Dewan Jones, which is a senior at right tackle. So their tackles they're doing well. I think Paris Johnson will probably be a first round pick. Maybe Dewan will be like a I don't know mid round pick or something like that. But at the same time, like what does Ohio State have to do to try to win this game come New Year's Eve?
Well, they're going to have to find a way to move the football. They're averaging about 500 yards a game. Georgia's defense is, only allowing like 300 yards a game. So they're going to have to find some matchups in the secondary. The problem is going to be is decent and as good as C.J. Stroud is, being a dual threat, is that pressure up front. If you go back and look at that Penn State game, Stroud had a really, really tough time throwing the football. And Penn State has some very, very talented defensive backs. But again, that pressure getting on him, he does not seem to do very, very well. So that's going to be an interesting. And then again, of course, Chris Smith and Malachi Starks, they're going to be busy. They're going to be busy. You've got again Egbuka, and then you also have Marvin Harrison Jr., who are they're just monsters. I mean, they really are. So in order for for them to be successful against us, they're going to have to go to a quick, maybe quick 3-step, maybe 1-step drop and do some of that old school, Tom Brady, just catch it, throw, catch it and throw, catch it and throw. And then hopefully their guys can do, make some big plays, but that's going to be tough.
So I look at, right, my thing is CJ Stroud being a dual threat. I think that's a little bit misleading. If you've watched him during the season, my man stands back there and doesn't like to run. Georgia, the thing about it is, if Georgia finds your tendencies, and say for instance his tendency is not really wanting to run, what does that tell me? That tells me that D line, or maybe if some of the, you'll probably see 5 guys rush, maybe 6, right? If you can sit there and take our 6 guys and win the line of scrimmage and create pressure, CJ Stroud might have to run. Now he can run, I just don't think that's his preference. Does that mean something like he could be uncomfortable when trying to run? Now I've also seen him use his legs and it get the offense like gets them hyped up and makes it more dangerous. So you have to respect his ability to run, but you have to look at his I don't know, I guess you could say his inept. I wouldn't say I don't know. He just don't necessarily like to do that, right?
Yeah.
If he can sit back there and throw the ball, that's what he's going to do.
But
Now,
we but we have to be prepared for that because we got slaughtered in that SEC championship last year. Bryce Young using his legs, and Bryce Young
well,
is a
no
guy,
doubt,
he does not like to run at all. He would rather sit back there and pass. Same with CJ. But when we forced him to run, we did not do a very good job of
yeah.
bottling him
I
up.
mean, now at the same time, Bryce Young is very, very uh, what's the word? Um, he's quick with it. He's kind of he'll make you miss. You know what I mean? He's very elusive, if you will. Talk about the receivers. One, they don't have one person, and I think it's a big deal here. The POWG calls out. Pat fact for the day actually. Juan Daniels with a knee injury carrying a medicine ball is better than all of Ohio State's receivers. Mm, mm, mm. But at the same time, like I think you have to look at Jalen Carter going up against what probably their right guard, I would say. Right guard being Matthew Jones. He's about to have a field day with that. Just gonna leave that there. Ultimately, I think this is the key here for Ohio State. The question is, how do they handle Georgia's physicality and aggressiveness? What are your thoughts on that? Like, what are your predictions? How well or bad do you think they handle that aggressiveness and the physicality?
It's going to be a culture shock because if you look at it, they did not face a physical football team like they're going to face against Georgia. Like Michigan is pretty good up front. Northwestern gave them all kinds of fits. But for them to have to prepare or even understand the speed and the agility and the physicality that they're about to endure, and then to have to do that 4 quarters. So I think that those first two drives, they're going to be like, wow, we're not cut out for this. We have to continue to do this for 4 quarters. That's going to be tough. And then also too, you're going to have to, in order for them to be successful, they're going to have to run the football consistently. And the likelihood of them doing that is just not very high.
Because I know, excuse me, and this is why I think it's key to see how healthy these running backs can get. Excuse me. Because if I'm not mistaken, you got Maya Williams right now, and or Dallin Hayden as well, that are carrying the load without Travion and Evan Pryor, and rightfully so. They're not a bad running back room, but it could be a lot better if those guys are healthy, right? The two aforementioned there. But I just don't know. I have my reservations on how they handle the physicality because Michigan, in my opinion, is probably the most physical team that they had seen, and they really couldn't do much, right? Like it, to go back and try to remember off of a whim here, if I'm not mistaken, you saw Michigan play man coverage, right? Play man coverage on outside, and it really challenged the receivers to get open. Now they got open to some points, but it was not as you would expect, right? So it makes me wonder, how the receivers handle, right? How they handle that, which makes me look at, I don't expect Georgia to play a lot of zone. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I just don't see that. You might see a slight variation of it, right? But I think this is a game where Ohio State's going to have to get over Georgia playing physical man coverage because this one. That's what Georgia's about. When they play man coverage, it is a very physical brand of man coverage. So you're going to look for guys like Marvin Harrison. I think the key matchup could be Marvin Harrison versus Keely Ringo. However, because I have a feeling they'll want. I would think Malachi Starks, considering he has better coverage skills, even as a freshman, to help out if need be over the top. I feel like Kamari Lassiter can. I feel like he should be able to handle Emeka Ibuka, right? And then you start to look around and you got the linebackers playing, right? Things like that. I genuinely think that if you see us playing a physical brand of football defensively, it can challenge that Ohio State offense to produce. I don't expect this Ohio State defense to look, or offense, I mean, to look similar to the game plan that Georgia did defensively against LSU. I just don't see that because I can about assure you, they don't look at Ohio State as a team led by Jaden Daniels. They look at it probably like a Nussmeier. So you're going to see more physical brand of football. You have to. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, does that make sense?
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
I'm sitting here taking a look at, obviously from a comparative standpoint, you're looking at, points per game, and points allowed. I mean, if you look at their team stats versus each other, they're very, very similar. I mean, they are very, very similar. But as I read down to some of the games that Ohio State's played, I mean, you got Maryland, who's not a very good football team, Indiana, Northwestern, and you're looking at Penn State. I mean, none of these guys are going to be able to match up with the players that the teams that Georgia's played. They're not going to be able to match up from an SEC standpoint. So when you're looking at that physicality, you're looking at that brutal schedule. Georgia's had a pretty tough schedule, and then Ohio State not so much. So for them to actually just come in here and just try to match up with us, it's going to be some tough sledding.
I do think you'll see kind of a culture shock as well. You know, just talking about like we saw what happened. If you watch the game, I don't know what it was. I think it was more of a defensive situation, which, like I said, we'll talk more about that later. But offensively, I think you disrupted the timing. It looked like as well. There were some situations where I thought they should have been able to make plays and they just didn't. Now, how much of that is not having Travion there? Because when they have Travion, they run the ball and they try to run up he's one of those guys that will try to get up the field quick. Right? And I think ultimately, defensively, that's what Georgia wants a guy to run up the field, try to run into you. You know what I mean? If Travion is healthy, I think you have to look at, you know, you have to look at how they're going to use tight ends to try to chip our defensive guys, right? Do you do that? I don't know if they have the tight end room to do that, but at the same time, you know, when you have a guy like, you know, Chaz Chambliss, if he's playing, he's got to keep his responsibility. And I think when you look at Bobby Beal, right, I think you're fine. I'm comfortable with him. When you look at Chaz Chambliss or Michael Williams, right, I think Michael Williams could have a big game, depending on how those tackles play.
Mm-hmm.
Because even as a freshman, you saw Michael Williams' ability as a pass rusher. It's evident. So if Ohio State can't move the ball and is put in third and medium, third and long situations, it could get ugly because of the skill set that we have from a pass rush standpoint. And like I said, when you look at a situation, and I think defensively this is going to help, it will force C.J. Stroud out of the pocket. He's mobile enough, but I think Georgia has the linebackers to kind of, if you want to spy, maybe put a small Mond in there to spy. The speed is just too much. And I think the speed could cause Ohio State's offense some problems. I just don't see a defense that's played or that they have played that is as fast as that. I think, like I said, you talked about the culture shock. Honestly, from all facets of the game, physicality, speed, aggressiveness. I think that might be a complete culture shock. They might not be ready for that.
Yeah, and then they have to do that for a continuous 4 quarters. That's going to be tough.
I mean, ultimately, I think it's a matter of asserting your will, right? To me, and I've said this recently, but I feel like Ryan Day offensively is just fine, but it's more of a finesse and less physicality. When you go back to, how can I explain it? Go back to Urban Meyer, right? Jim Tressel. What were those offenses known for?
I mean, it's just physicality. I mean, they really were. You get Urban Meyer, you get you a big old Tim Tebow, or you get those big old Cardell, and those guys, and they just had big, strong, powerful guys that were just coming. They were coming downhill.
Yeah, I mean Terrell Pryor was a good
Yeah.
example.
Terrell Pryor, yeah.
I mean, you look at those teams, right? And like I said, they had a lot of physicality. I mean, ultimately defense, right? We're going to talk about that Wednesday, but they had a different brand of defense too. So not to get too far into that. Um, we talked about Ohio State's offense, things like that, but let's transition to Georgia. Now we're talking the dogs. Ultimately, Juan, where do you think, when looking at our offense and knowing our offense, what do you see Georgia, like what do you see Georgia having to do to get their way and win this game?
Well, obviously, be physical up front, and they are always going to be physical up front. I think the most physical team that they ran into this year was that Kentucky group, and they were still able to do what they needed to do to run the ball. Ohio State is not going to be that physical. They're actually kind of small up front as well. So we're just going to, you need to see a dose of Milton and McIntosh and Edwards, and all of these guys that are, just rotating. The crazy thing that's going to be difficult for Ohio State defensively is, who do you defend? Who do you defend? I want to just to here. I'll run down just a list really quick on their games. Here's the high rusher for their games. It was Milton, Bennett, Bowers, McIntosh, Robinson, Edwards, McIntosh, McIntosh, Milton. Then you look at the high receivers for all of their games that they played. It was McIntosh, Bowers, McConkey, Washington, Bowers, McConkey, Blaylock, McIntosh, Bowers. Who do you prepare for?
I think that's the key question there, right? Like, what makes this offense so potent? One, and see if you want to add on to this, the ability for one player to step out at any point and make a statement at any point in time, and it's not just one consistently. You have at least one per game that stands out and makes plays and becomes that player of the game, if you will. What kind of question is that, KTG? I'm not a Piv Extra kind of guy. Y'all know better. Got my daily doctor's appointment. But ultimately, though, like you said, you started listing off those names, right? Kendall Milton's finally getting healthy again. And we saw in the past couple games what a healthy Kendall Milton can look like. Leading rusher in the SEC championship game, 8 carries for like 100 and almost $120 almost. Like, you add that to it, but then you also try to, game plan against the tight ends. Yeah, you could have Darnell Washington go off, and then Brock Bowers the next game could sit there and just, hit 3 touchdowns. And then you have Ladd McConkey. Oh, wait, okay, so Ladd McConkey, you want a game plan against him. Okay. Next thing you know, Marcus Rosemy-Jack Saint coming in making a, two-toe tapping touchdown right against Tennessee. Remember that?
Or Blaylock, or
hell, Stetson could be the player. He could run the ball like he did at Auburn, 65 yards to the house. So you have to there's a multitude of ways to game plan, and it makes it extremely difficult to do so because of the great players around Stetson Bennett, but also Stetson Bennett can kill you with his feet. The way I've seen, if you go back and watch Michigan, Ohio State, their ends, they get up the field. And what I mean by that, if you're not careful, it will lead to wide open lanes for Stetson to just hold it and run right through. They like to get upfield, and they get upfield fast. So if the tackles, if Broderick, if McClendon is healthy and playing, all right, if you can get up the field and push them up past, I'm telling you right now, all Stetson needs to do is get up in the pocket. If you have your tight ends and receivers running routes and things like that, it's going to be a problem because you have to account for that. They have a tendency to pass rush. Even they'll even give up runs like if in their pass rush. I don't know if you've noticed it. Angles are terrible, and what that tells me is they're so focused on getting sacks in the pass rush that they compromise themselves in the run game. So Like for instance, when Georgia defensively tries to stop the run, we're straight up, right? Their ends are literally sideways, Juan. Sideways. How are you going to make a play like that?
Can't do that.
Especially against a team like Georgia, because Georgia can run it on the outside. You can do trucks. You can do toss sweeps. You can do truck sweeps. Jet sweeps. But then also, if you want to do however you want to do it, you want to do split zone. You want to do counter, tray counter, you name it. Georgia can run it. Right? You can run it. With that being said, you got to. I think if they don't respect that, we're gonna run the ball, and I guarantee you, what Michigan did on running the ball ain't gonna be shit.
Yeah,
because it's gonna happen for 4 quarters.
It's gonna be a bad day. It's gonna be a bad day.
Ultimately, yes. Now, at the same time, not gonna shit on their defense all that much, too much, because that also poses a threat for Georgia to have to work around offensively, right? You can't hold on to the ball that long because they have. Listen, the interesting thing is some of the get off that I've seen from that Ohio State, especially those ends. That's a problem. That's a problem. So you might see Georgia have to allude to some short game, right? Do some short game screens. I'm telling you right now, outside of Ohio State's front four, they are small, folks. They are small. And what does that mean, Juan? Especially on the outsides. What does that mean if you're Georgia?
Let's throw it, man. Let's throw it.
I wouldn't even say that. Perimeter blocking.
Oh, we've got the best perimeter blocking, hands down. I mean, there is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. We have the best perimeter blocking.
Well, my thought is this, right? Like I said, if you go look at these guys, go back if you find the game, just look at those guys from a physical measurable standpoint, and just picture Georgia's physicality on the perimeter and with Darnell and Brock Bowers. To me, I'm seeing screens. I'm seeing, like lead, right, like a lead counter, right, where you have Darnell or Brock Bowers coming and just leading the way to block whatever. It could get ugly if they don't shed blocks, because when you have the running backs like Georgia does, Kenny McIntosh will make you miss. He can make you miss, and he can fly right by you. Dejon Edwards, same thing. Kendall Milton will just run through you. He don't give a damn.
Yep.
When I see Kendall Milton and I look at those guys from a measurable standpoint, I'm picturing bad things. and it's not by choice. It's just the way it's built to be. These guys better come ready to fucking tackle. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yep.
Because we've alluded to this already. Georgia's gonna be physical. They will. Kirby's gonna game plan. He don't care what it looks like. He's gonna game plan to win the damn game. And if that means lean on these guys with Devin Willock and Broderick Jones and Tate Ratledge for 4 quarters and just break their will, physically break them bitches, as Kirby would say, he's going to do it.
Yep.
Keep them honest, right? Keep them honest. But what's the best way to beat an offense that's potent as shit?
Just keep them off the field.
Uh-huh. So what if you see a double-digit drive, 75-yard double-digit drive, right? Double-digit play, 75-yard drive, killing off half a quarter. What if you saw that one?
That hurts.
Because it could happen, right? It could happen. But I also see Georgia trying to take some deep shots as well.
Yeah.
Because I saw, and I guarantee you Kirby and staff saw this too, what Michigan was able to do offensively. And I'm not talking about just run the ball. I'm talking hitting deep shots. Now, they'll have some time to fix those things, just as we would. But the opportunity is there, if you will say that. Now, my question to you, Juan, do you think that if we're in the passing game, based off of what I've seen, do you think it's possible to leave a running back in for pass pro? Or do you think we utilize them out of the backfield and just trust our offensive line? What do you see?
I trust our offensive line. I mean, if you think about it, just being in the SEC alone, you've seen the best of the best. You're going to see the best that that you're going to see. And if they were able to do it then, I'm pretty confident that they're going to be able to send them back out of the backfield. And that's just going to be, it's going to be terrible. Like I was watching the 49ers game last night. They motioned out Christian McCaffrey to a wideout, and he just goes and runs right by a guy and scores, which is the same thing that we saw Milton do earlier in the season when they just spread him out and let him run down the field. I can see us doing all kinds of things to take advantage of all these matchups, and this is just only what we see. So imagine what Monken is game planning for, and imagine what he is strategizing for to take on this Ohio State team. It's going to be pretty special.
I guarantee you that's him right there thinking about it.
Yeah,
he's foaming at the mouth. You know it. Listen, ultimately, I think Georgia offensively will just be too physical. We saw what happened defensively against Michigan from Ohio State, the output there. If they thought that Michigan was, too physical, if it was too physical, listen, albeit that's a rivalry game, right? And one of the biggest in the country there. Georgia does that on a weekly basis for the most part. Don't need a rivalry there. Just fucking road grade you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, also too, and I'm looking at this right here again, and call me an SEC homer or that SEC bias, but Georgia allowed 7 sacks in 13 games this year. So again, do I trust our offensive line? 1,000% I do.
I think at the same time we trust that, and you trust Stetson's legs. Now, at the same time, Stetson has to play a good game in the sense where you don't give them the ball. Turnovers. And honestly, it hasn't been as many picks as it has been hitting the ball, letting the ball hit the turf. Fumbles. I think you look at running backs, you better hold on to the ball, right? I think you better be holding on to the ball. There was one, if you had to choose one person, if you will, or however you want to view this, what do you predict, if you will, be the matchup to watch for Georgia's offense versus Ohio State's defense? What is your one matchup that you're most willing to see or most excited to see?
I would probably say, our receivers versus their secondary, if that's going to be something, because I think that Ohio State is going to sell out to stop the run. I really, really, really do. And so, to see a Ladd McConkey go up against somebody, or Bowers or anybody, I think that's what's going to be, if we're looking at key matchups, that's going to be the key matchup for Georgia. What is our receivers going to be able to do against the secondary?
I'm glad you brought that up, because watching that Michigan game, this is what killed them ultimately, right? When they had to, so Michigan was obviously gashing them. So for them to stop the run, they had to bring in 8 players into the box, and depending on how the formations were set up, sometimes 9 to stop the run. The one thing I will say about this is Georgia only needs 6. And if we can get 6, it's a wrap.
Mm-hmm.
At tops, I've seen 7. I don't think I've seen 8 in the box all year unless it's goal line. If that right there could be the biggest key for me, and seeing how Georgia's offensive line matches up against the defense, that if they're trying to stop the run, they have to throw that amount of bodies in there. They have to. So I think my matchup is the lines of scrimmage. Offensive line versus the defensive personnel that they try to run, especially in the run game. Because, to that point, right? If you have 8 guys in the box trying to stop the run, what better way to do it than to sit there and do a jet sweep when they're already in the box and utilize Kenny McIntosh with speed into space?
Yeah.
If you know they're trying to stop the run, especially with Brock Bowers, right? Like, if you get into a personnel situation where they have 8 guys in the box trying to stop it, hit them outside the tackle box quickly and it will be a problem for them because they don't have the guys outside to handle it. I just don't see that. This ain't the DBU that you're used to hearing from back in the day,
Mhm.
at least to my knowledge. And if an Ohio State fan wants to come in here and tell me about it, I'll listen to see what you got to say. But when it comes to like I said, the perimeter blocking, things like that, it would not surprise me to see Georgia run the ball, establish the run game because you know that's got to happen. Establish that run game, and when they come in to stop it, that's when you start to see Todd Monken do his thing, get his bag, hit guys out in space, quick space, screens. Do you see a lot of 12 personnel? Do you see a lot of bunch combinate or bunch concepts, if you will? I think you could see that, but it's
Yeah.
going to keep is because ultimately, and if they start to put 7, 8 guys in the box, you might see Todd Monken put. Maybe you see him put a bunch out there on the side on the end of the line of scrimmage, or do you try to get them to spread them out and force them? Right? Do you play a lot? Maybe even 4 personnel, move Brock Bowers out, and do that right there. Try to get you know your 5 against maybe 6 or 7, right? And then just run it down their throats.
Yeah.
Because if you spread them out, if they try to put 8 in the box against a spread offense like that, what does that mean? Smoke routes.
Yeah.
And it's going to kill them. It'll kill them. So it forces them to spread out, and then this is why I think this matchup lines up extremely well, potentially, overall. To me, it's just a physicality, and the options that we have could be a very big problem.
What's up?
Is that Mr. Ash?
Yes, sir.
Tell him congratulations on a great freshman season.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, tell him I stayed up till 2:00 in the morning a few times.
Oh, that's right. We were messaging back and forth, man.
Hey, shit, it's Pac-12 after dark. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But no, I mean, so you get what I'm saying, right? Like the game plan, right? The game calling to keep them open, if you will. That's gonna be juicy if I'm a Georgia fan. It's that simple. Hashtag. You didn't do the hashtag. Didn't do it, but the brigade came in hot with the Ash fan club. You look like you better go work out. But no, so I want to hear the brigade for a second. I want to let us know what your matchup, right? Let us in the comments. What matchup are you most excited to see? While we wait for them and the brigade to pop in, Juan, how do you think Georgia's offense will fare? Do you think there's more pass, is it more run to pass? Do you think it's balanced? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think it'll essentially be more run to pass. I mean, that's gonna be what it is they're gonna try to run the ball, and then they're just gonna wear that defensive line down, and then just to the point where they're gonna break. And then you're just going to see us, just like Michigan ran all over them, you're going to see us run completely all over them.
So with that being said, do you have a running back that you think is going to have a better game than others, or do you think it's a balance?
Give me Milton. Give me Milton. I see you, KTGs, and that's my QB. I hope you got the tears in your eyes too.
That's my he got him tattooed. He got him tattooed. Do you know what I mean?
That's my quarterback.
Why can't I be quarterback? Throw me the ball.
Yes,
man. But no, so I'm sitting there. I think because if you look back at the SEC championship, we were basically balanced, if you will, and it's not in a bad way. I'm talking like 250 plus on the ground, 250 plus in the air. That is a deadly combination. Tells you how balanced Georgia is, and we can do it however we want to, right? Now the game plan, I feel like this is setting up to be a just control your will kind of game and embarrass Ohio State. I think that's what Kirby's going to try to do. Is we look back at Michigan.
Here's the other thing too that Georgia's done a great job of this year, and it's common opponents. And when Georgia plays a common opponent, one of the things that they do is they just absolutely blast them, just so they know. So there's no comparisons. There aren't any comparisons. And I think that this being a common opponent, I see Georgia really just trying to absolutely drown Ohio State to send a message to Michigan for that championship game to say, listen, man, I get it. You guys, played your best game right there, but you have no idea what you're about to be in store for.
No doubt. I think you'll see. Honestly, I think you'll see more run game as well. But I think you see more balance. I do because I think the best way to prove a point is to do what you did in the SEC championship game. Come out offensively and show your balance and do it efficiently as well. Because one of the things that I thought was our biggest weakness this season did not show itself in the SEC championship game. That was red zone offense. We did not struggle nearly as bad as we had in the games in the past in the regular season. If that's a preview of things to come, oh, it's gonna get nasty. Oh, it's gonna get nasty. So I think that's something as well, right? Like, how does Georgia fare in the red zone? I feel like that's something that, right, we need to be able to establish and run the ball. But you don't want to get too predictable, especially in the red zone, right? Like, so what are your thoughts in regards to the red zone, based off of what we're seeing offensively? What do you think we should do from that standpoint to be efficient in the red zone and not lean on field goals and score touchdowns instead?
Well, obviously play action. They know that we're going to try to pound the ball, so I think play action is going to be big. Just like you talked about a little bit earlier, screens. But I would take a Kendall Milton, or I would take one of our running backs, line them up on the outside, and let them go to work. You got your slants, you got your goes, you got your posts. You can do whatever you want to with those running backs. Heck, I'd even put two running backs on the field at the same time. I mean, just kind of mix it up so that we are not very predictable, and so that they cannot adjust to what we're going to do. But what I do love, and we got 2-3 weeks of Monken he's just going to be planning. There's going to be a lot of things that were successful against Ohio State this year. And you can best believe everything that he saw that was successful against them, we're going to have it tenfold.
I think another thing too is, I think we need to be creative, but don't get too cute with shit. You know what I mean? Because that was some of the things that I'd seen that I got questions about was, why are we trying to be so cute when it comes down to the red zone? When you're within the 5-yard line, right, for instance, and you want to sit there and do like some, jet sweeps and stuff like that. Why be cute? However, at the same time, I also see the counterbalance, and it showed a little bit. 3rd and 1, 4th and 1 situations, so we still didn't get enough push. So, it kind of answers your question, but you got to figure out what needs to be done. Do you tell your linemen to drop their nuts and just go at it and go? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. South Carolina, man, coming in handy right there. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think you can see and this you might love this too. I think AD Mitchell could come in clutch with short goal line situations. Mm-hmm. I feel like when he's healthy, if you remember against McCreary last year, I think it was, that whip route.
Oh yeah,
that can be. Now we tried that in the SEC championship game and he fell down. With him getting 3 weeks of added health and getting back and repping this stuff out, I think you see that play at least one time in the red zone. And I think you connect on it too, because when he's healthy and he can run that route comfortably and confidently, I don't see a lot of DBs stopping that.
Yeah, you can't. It's tough.
Now something else too. We did it in the SEC championship game. It was absolutely beautiful to see. Darnell Washington in the red zone, actually getting a receiving touchdown. That was fun to see, and it's so long, but he also had a big game where we saw him catch that 2-point conversion too.
Yep.
It seems like regardless of the score, finding those ways to get him involved in the red zone when you're 6'7", 6'7 and a half, 6'8 range, that is a must. Absolutely a must. All-American teams. Jalen Carter, Chris Smith, first team All-American. And Brock Bowers. Thoughts on that?
Say that again. You cut out.
All right, so AP All-Americans just released. First team, you have Jalen Carter, Chris Smith. Second team, you have Jamon Dumas-Johnson and Brock Bowers.
Well, Chris Smith and Carter, those are easy. Absolutely easy. I'm a little just kind of taken aback about the Brock Bowers being the second team because who was the first team guy?
Probably Michael Mayer. I can try to look and confirm.
Which is crazy because again, I didn't think that he was as good as advertised, but again, it'll be. Say it again.
You saw, yeah. So Michael Mayer.
Yeah, I saw.
Michael Mayer was first team. Michael Mayer was first team.
Yep. I saw him in person. But again, it'll just be something additional that Kirby's going to put up on the board to say, hey, this is what they think about you.
They disrespected you.
Yep.
Hey, oh yeah. Like, see, my thought is like,
I think Bowers is not that guy that you want to get mad.
Oh man, Kirby will find a way to get Jalen Carter mad.
Yep.
About being first team. How much you want to bet?
Yeah, you can see that too.
He will find a way to motivate. That's something that, you know this all too well, but Kirby has got to be the master motivator, man. Like he will find anything and everything to motivate guys and do that. And if what do you think would happen, Juan, because right now you have Georgia and Michigan offensive lines as the two finalists for the Joe Moore Award. I fear for Ohio State if they say Michigan is the Joe Moore Award winner over Georgia. I'm just saying, because that's going to make that offensive line even more fucking physical.
Yeah.
And I'm all for that.
It's going to be ugly. It's going to be ugly.
Let's see. Pat asked, any updates on Ladd and McClendon?
Yeah, that's what I was looking for.
I think they'll both be okay for the game. I do. Obviously, if this was a week, if we were getting ready for a game this week, I don't know how confident I would say. Yeah. But the fact that you've got several weeks here to rest up and get healthy, I think
Kirby's really hush on these types of things too. So I don't think that even if they did have something, it's not like we're going to know here pretty soon.
So it looks as if we talked about this at the very beginning, but it seems like Coach Leach has passed away.
That's sad.
Waiting to confirm that, trying to find that. I don't know. And at the same time, I am looking to try to make sure that is the case. So keep that in mind. I'm just looking to see what the latest is because that's important. Let me look. Okay, maybe not so fast, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, like I said, keep them in your thoughts. Keep the family thoughts and prayers, because that is a tumultuous time, and it's not a good one by any stretch of the means. Let's see. Does the brigade have any questions in regards to this offensive, I guess you could say, offensive analysis before we wrap this thing up? We'll let those folks chime in. Juan, what are your final thoughts while we give the brigade some time to ask questions?
Man, I'm excited to get the show on the road, man. I just think it's going to be, for me, it's just going to be joy because I've always said how bad I felt like Ohio State was. So for us to be the ones to really, really punish them, and again, I think that Kirby does a great job of saying, hey, these common opponents, I want to leave no doubt, and I just think that they're going to be ready.
So Pat is saying that the Leach family's been called in, waiting on children to arrive. Is the current Mike Leach status. So we'll see how that goes. To me, that's not a good sign whatsoever when that is the case. But to kind of keep things going here, I'm just looking at it as I feel like we don't have to worry about these guys, not playing down. These guys are going to be up for this game. It's a game that if a lot of people may not remember, Ohio State canceled the series. We were supposed to play Ohio State in 20 and 21. They canceled it. They canceled the series. Did you remember that one?
But
Yeah, canceled the series, man. Ohio State did. So if you have an Ohio State person you're chatting with, let them know that they could have played us and received 2 ass whippings, but they didn't want to. I mean, let's be honest. I think it would have happened. Let's just be real. Because Michael B says a healthy AD makes this tough to defend. And, listen, we haven't had AD Mitchell healthy since Sanford. And his presence has been surely missed. I felt like, Juan, did you go to Tennessee or something? Or because, you won, won the Biliknikoff. Biletnikoff, God almighty. Yeah. Welcome to Monday, folks.
I only know that because I'm a receiver. So
yeah, there you go. Try to say that name 5 times fast.
Yeah.
You're fine. But no, so I think it'll be interesting, and I just want to see how charged up these guys are, because it's coming. They've got that on their mind. But I don't think there's a layover. I think it's also interesting to see. That's Kobe in the chat. Oh, Jesus. It'll be interesting to see how they respond, right? Coming off of a SEC championship that they've eluded since 2017, right? That's a big deal. How motivated are these guys to come out and prove more points? I think they will be, but I want to see to what level, what degree. Because, you've got the SEC championship. You've got an unblemished back-to-back regular season now for the first time in school history. First time in school history going 13-0. Now you've got a chance to be 15-0, but it starts with Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
And the level of focus, the level of physicality, like we've talked about throughout this episode today, it has to be on an extremely high level to go out and play Georgia's brand of football. I don't see any doubt in my mind for reason to believe that it will not be difficult for them to get up and play for this game. I guarantee they are laser focused. They've had 3 weeks to do it. It's about to get juicy, folks. It's about to be a man, oh man. I'm looking forward to it. I really am. We've been wanting to talk about this matchup for a while, and now you get it. So
yep. Here it is.
Oh yeah, and then like I said, we're not going to get ahead because while we think we may know what happens in the other semifinal matchup, we'll talk about that when it comes time. Kobe, we did talk about the AP All-Americans. Yes. Let us know what your thoughts are about Mr. Bowers coming in second team after winning the Mackey Award. I find that interesting, don't you? Juan, you talked about it too. Like, how can you win the best tight end in the country but still be second in the AP All-American?
Crazy.
Like, is there a calculation for that? I mean, what is it, a statistical award?
Yeah.
Like the Heisman? Like, if anything, this year shows you that those awards are all statistics driven.
Yep.
Anyways, with that being said, final comment, Helen Keller must have the majority vote for the AP.
Yep.
No doubt. Juan, we'll catch back here Wednesday, sir.
Yes, sir.
Talk about defense this time, so not up your alley with the receiver, but definitely think it'll be interesting to talk about the defense. There's a lot to talk about.
Yes, sir.
With that being said, have a great rest of your day. Make sure to like, follow, subscribe, leave us a review on podcast. And with that being said, go Dogs.
Go Dogs.